I think it's different. I think when you're young, the consequences don't matter as much. You're just thinking about the end result. It's a little bit different now. I have 4 children, and I don't think I could take the risk necessarily that I did when I was 21 and living check to check. But at that point, the consequences didn't matter. If I had to get thrown out of the TED conference or whatever, it didn't really matter. I would just try again. And I think the second point to that is once you get over the fear of being embarrassed, no one likes to be embarrassed, but once you get over being scared of being embarrassed, it's super liberating. And it allows you to go into lanes that otherwise you wouldn't go into. And I just love the thrill of trying to do what everyone said I couldn't do. It takes a long time. It's a fast world. There's a build into that learning curve. For me, 980, it takes a lot of time, and I just never had that time. So I've always been like, let me get my foot in the door, and I will figure it out. I will hire people that can help me figure it out. I can go to experts to help me, but they usually won't help me get in the door. So let me take the first step, and then once you have momentum, you can ride the momentum. So that's always been my MO, It's always been in everything. And everybody's wired differently. Everybody's wired completely different. It's hard to rewire someone to be comfortable taking risks, comfortable with being embarrassed. And I think it comes from having a lot of egg on your face. When I was 24 years old, I wrote 10 letters a day, thank you notes, to anyone that came into my life that impacted me. And it could be, even if I didn't know you, but I saw your show and I was like, you know what, Tom, you've had some amazing guests I've really benefited from. I would just write you a handwritten note because, one, the handwritten note shows intent. You have to buy the envelope, buy the stationery, write the letter, lick the envelope, get the stamp, put it in the mail. That's a lot different than hitting send. The people that you meet in your 20s rise up in their 30s and are in great positions of power in their 40s. You don't know in your 20s who's going to make it and who's not. So, you treat everybody properly and respectfully, and you stay in touch. And very often those relationships merge their heads years later, decades later. If I find someone that's inspiring or an event or something, I try to introduce he, she, or it to my life. And that's part of just my own personal development. I learn better through experience than through books. I like to be challenged, and I love interesting people. I like people that think differently, that act differently. That's what attracts me. That's just what makes me feel like I'm getting the most out of life. And I'm on a constant search for that because I'm very aware of my own mortality. I'm 50 years old. I'm turning 50, and the average American lives to be 78. And if that were the case and I was average, that means I got 28 years left. And that dictates, well, who do I want to spend that time with and what do I want to do? And that's a driving, it's like on repeat in my head. I think people's relationship with time, we talk about relationships with humans. How's your relationship with your kids? How's your relationship with your wife, your dad or your parents? But we never talk about a relationship with money and time. And your relationship with time is such a key component of your life because when you get caught in a routine, time goes so quickly. When you understand that there are maybe only 28 summers left, and if you want to truly, get as much experientially out of life, it just creates a tremendous amount of urgency. We invest so much time in our work resume, which is important, but I think it's equally, if not more important, to build your life resume because that's really an indication of who you are and what you're becoming. And that's really a true look into your true body of work, is sharing in each other's successes and rooting for each other. And when the star shines on someone, you celebrate it, and then the other person, partner celebrates it. Being an entrepreneur is lonely. You went through the journey, man, it's lonely. And nobody worries about it when you're the founder like you worry about it. And you can give out shares and compensation and this and that, but, it's Tom's bar, man. So there are times where you have to be super supportive and understanding. And being an entrepreneur, I'm very aware of that. So I think it's a good fit. My form of communication has been running an hour a day. In the last 25 years, I've ran 36,000 miles. I've ran 10,000 hours or something, alone, basically alone. And that's been my meditation. And that's been my release. And that's been my it's been my creative process. It's been my physical well-being. It's been my own form of meditation. And it's been my release. And that's it. I'm good. You don't cut corners. And you make a commitment. And, you're going to have to tough it out. And the lessons are usually in the last, like most people do 95% the same. But the last 5%, I'm sure you experienced it at Quest at times, 99% of the people quit. But it's the last 5% when you hit the wall and you finish the marathon where the growth is, not the first 18 miles. You're going to get distracted from your goals, and all these arrows are going to come at you all the time. But the same way this dog goes from point A to point B, even if there's a pork chop there, whatever your goal is, you have to get there. Even though people are going to say you can't do it, even though people are going to throw different opportunities, I'm sure your friends went out a million times to happy hour when you had to stay late when you were starting your business. I mean, I was in the same situation. Those are the distractions that come at you. But to get to your goal, you can't go to happy hour every night. You have to return emails, and you have to check the manufacturer, and you have to check the inventory, and you have to make sales calls. Well, I think like everybody, I feel overwhelmed a lot still, even though I'm older now and I've had some success and failure, but I still have a lot of arrows that come at me all the time. Requests for my time, challenges at work, challenges raising kids. Being in a marriage, is not easy. I mean, we have a great marriage, but it's not easy. It's work, and it's overwhelming. So for me, I think part of it is always having something big on my calendar that I can look forward to. Every other month, I try to put something on my calendar for a weekend that I can really look forward to, so it helps me get through the tough times. And I like to have at least one really big challenge a year that kind of centers me and keeps me honest. That's really helpful for me. And then the other thing that I do that really helps is I have a journal, and I just take everything that's on my head and I keep it in a master journal. Doesn't mean I'm going to get to it, doesn't mean it goes away, but it gets out of my head and it goes somewhere else to free up space in my head. And then I'll just work it off, or I'll prioritize it from the master list. But just the act of taking all the stuff that's in your head, putting it on paper in one place where it lives, is like really freeing and energizing. It's my life resume. It's helping people is important to me. I feel great being able to help people in any way. I love people, so that's a big part of my life. It's just realizing that it went so fast, and realizing that there's so much that I want to do, and being aware that your 70s are a different decade than your 40s and 50s. Then you have 20 years left. And when you put it in perspective of how many weekends there are, there's only 52 weekends, and you start to look at it like that, you're like, I'm going to be 80 in 30 years. It's scary. I got kids. It's scary because there's a lot I want to do. I feel like I haven't done anything compared to what I want to do and the opportunities. I think the first thing is, like any goal, is attaching yourself to something that you love to do. And we've heard that many times, but we often neglect it because there's an opportunity, maybe there's more money, but it takes a long time to build a brand or accumulate wealth, or we hear of these get-rich-quick things and they happen, but they're not the norm. It takes time. So if you're not doing something over that time, and all of a sudden you lost your 20s and your 30s, you never get them back. So I think first step is to attach yourself. The passion has to be to something that you like. I think if you're an entrepreneur, you have to understand the passion is around the process as well as the product and what you're doing. People often neglect the process. But you can't shortcut it. And if that's what you're signed up for, you have to respect it. The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. Your world, it's a big world, but our worlds are small. You're going to leave all this and you go to a very small world, as do I. So I want to just positively impact the people that are close to me in a way that will carry on as long as it can.